the quaint, hallowed halls of medieval Europe, monasteries and convents were built as sanctuaries. Imagine silent stone walls, cloisters where prayers echoed softly, and the thick, sacred smell of incense hanging in the air. These were places of devotion, piety, and unwavering discipline. But even in the holiest of sanctuaries, darkness can sometimes find a way in. Our story takes us to a convent, somewhere in the heart of France. The exact location is lost to time, and the year is unclear, with records being frustratingly vague. Historians only whisper about this event in footnotes and quiet academic circles. But one chilling story has survived the centuries, a story of voices, of whispers, and of a sound that should never have come from human lips. It all began one ordinary morning. The nuns of this particular convent awoke to a strange and unsettling noise, a single voice rising from the dormitory. At first, it was so soft, it was barely audible, a faint, almost pitiful sound, like a small animal in distress. It was the sound of a meow. The source was one of the sisters, a nun named Isabel. No one could understand it. Sister Isabel was known for her devotion. Her faith was beyond question, her life a perfect model of obedience and piety. Yet now, in the sacred quiet of the convent halls, her voice had taken on the cry of a common cat. At first, the other nuns were simply confused. They tried to ignore it, perhaps thinking it was a momentary lapse, a strange joke. But the sound didn't stop. It grew louder, more insistent, more disturbing with each passing hour. And then, the inexplicable happened. One by one, the other nuns began to join her. Soon, a chorus of meows filled the entire convent. Imagine that sound, echoing through the cold stone corridors, bouncing off the high ceilings of the chapel, and drifting through the cloisters in the dead of night. It was a symphony of madness. At times, the sound was strangely harmonious, almost musical, but at other times, it was a horrifying shriek like 1,000 trapped animals, all crying out from within human bodies for reasons no one could comprehend. Visitors who came to the convent for prayer or business started to notice. Travelers, visiting priests, even local villagers began to report hearing the bizarre, animalistic cries coming from behind the convent walls. Some claimed it sounded playful, almost mischievous, but most described it as deeply chilling, a sound that made the hair on their arms stand up. For hours, sometimes for entire days, the nuns couldn't stop. No amount of prayer, no scolding from the Mother Superior, and no form of punishment seemed to have any effect. The meowing was relentless, a force that had taken complete control. And it wasn't just the sound. Observers reported that the nuns' very movements began to change, mimicking those of cats. They were seen crawling on their hands and knees across the stone floors. They would rub their faces against the cold walls, just as a cat would. Their eyes, wide and unblinking, seemed to catch the faintest glimmers of light in a disturbingly unnatural way. The abbot of the convent was desperate. He was at a complete loss. He called in scholars, esteemed priests, and even physicians from nearby towns, begging for an answer. They examined the nuns meticulously, searching for any sign of illness, any trace of poison, or any rational, natural cause for this behavior. But they found nothing. There was no disease, no toxin, and absolutely no logical explanation. With no answers to be found, whispers and rumors began to fester. Some whispered that it was a curse, a divine punishment for sins that had been long buried and forgotten within the convent's history. Others believed it was a holy test, a trial sent from God to measure their faith. But there were darker rumors, too. Rumors that the nuns had made a secret, unholy pact, that they had willingly invited some malevolent presence into their lives, and that this entity was now speaking through them. The hysteria spread like a contagion until the convent could no longer function. Daily routines collapsed, prayers went unanswered, and the sacred space descended into chaos. It's said that eventually, the authorities were called not to investigate a crime, but for containment. Soldiers and monks were sent to the site. Some accounts claim that severe threats, and even corporal punishment, were used to force the nuns to stop the incessant meowing. Slowly, reluctantly, the voices began to fade. The chorus of cries subsided, and an eerie silence fell over the convent once more. But the story didn't end there. 4 years afterward, visitors who passed the now-abandoned ruins reported hearing faint meows carried on the wind. At night, some swore that the very walls themselves seemed to whisper with feline voices. Even manuscripts from that era hinted similar. Smaller outbreaks and other monasteries' strange episodes of mass hysteria, where devout men and women would suddenly exhibit inexplicable, animal-like behaviors. Modern historians often point to a psychological explanation. They suggest it was a case of psychogenic illness, a form of collective hysteria, perhaps brought on by the intense stress and isolation of cloistered life. But for money, that explanation feels thin, somehow insufficient. How could dozens of disciplined, devout women fall into such bizarre behavior, all at once, without a clear trigger that would have survived the historical record? How could their voices imitate animals so perfectly, and for so long? Some call it the MEOWING Convent, a bizarre footnote in history, a cautionary tale of fear and obsession. Others see it as a clear case of mass hysteria, but one with unsettling, supernatural overtones. And some still whisper that whatever entered that convent all those centuries ago was not human at all. So if you ever find yourself wandering through the old forests of France, past crumbling stone ruins shrouded in ivy, listen closely. You might just hear it, a soft meow carried on the breeze, faint, almost mournful, a chilling reminder that even in places built for holiness, deep shadows can linger, a reminder that even the purest of hearts can fall under the sway of something strange, something inhuman. And sometimes, when the night is completely still, you may swear you can hear 1,000 voices in the dark, meowing, laughing, and crying, still waiting. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey into the strange and unexplained. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, and consider subscribing for more tales from the shadows of history. We'll see you next time.